Darwinian evolution has grown in acceptance in society and in the intellectual circles. We've had an increase in atheism, agnosticism, a lack of belief in the Bible. In 1925, in the Scopes trial, for example, just south of us in Tennessee, the Christians did not give a very good accounting of themselves to be able to give good, solid scientific answers. So the press reported in 1925, and generally accurately, that Christians could not defend their 25, but of course it started happening decades before that.
Actually, that's very incorrect. There have been various periods in American history where free thought has been much more active than it is right now. There were probably less of a percentage of persons who were religious fundamentalists at the time of the founding of the United States than there are today. This is a new religious revival movement that's come about. When I was in school some years ago, there was no fuss about the teaching of evolution. It was taught as scientific knowledge and fact. But now the same books that I studied in high school would come under attack from these folks who must have the literal meaning of the Bible. They must believe the Bible is true or else it is all incorrect. Now, there are plenty of mainstream Christians you can find who will take very great exception to that view and happily refute that theologically for you. This is a very simplistic understanding of religion.
There's a rumor that's circulating that Darwin recanted on his deathbed, and there's no truth to that. Maybe that's what you were alluding to here. But no, Darwin was a brilliant naturalist. He just looked at the same evidence that we have and came up with different conclusions.
Is it, now these are all theories. Nothing is really factual on either side. Is this correct?
Yeah, one of the first rooms you come into in the Creation Museum is a room on the nature of evidence. Creationists look at the same dinosaur bones as the evolutionist. We have the same evidence, but we come up with two different conclusions. Why? It's because our starting points, our biases, our presuppositions are like glasses that you look through that color whatever we see. So we are quite candid. We admit that we have biases and presuppositions. Just as I did growing up in the public schools in Los Angeles. I believed in evolution. I accepted that Neanderthal man was a kind of a missing link between upright humans and knuckle-dragging ape-like creatures until I looked at the evidence for myself and found out that the evolution system is certainly wanting. So I encourage the viewers to this right now to use the critical thinking skills that God's given them and look at the nature of the evidence and see which side, creation or evolution, better explains the world around us. Creation or evolution better explains the world around us.
This is truly remarkable, and we've encountered this kind of thing before. He admits that the creationists have a world view. They have a belief that Genesis is correct in every detail, every word, and everything they do is to set out to prove the truth of that assertion he concedes. It is not correct, however, to say that the scientific method is a belief system or a worldview. The scientific method takes evidence and subjects it to an attempt to falsify it, to show if it's not true or not. And the methods of science are reproducible by anyone knowledgeable in science who does the same experiment. It's a very different way of proceeding. Inductive logic versus deductive logic, basically.
Well, before Charles Darwin appeared on the scene, in the 1850s, most Catholics would have called themselves creationists and would have believed that creation occurred just a few thousand years ago.
Charles Darwin thought so too, until he made the trip to the Galapagos Islands and started being confronted with proof that he did not want to accept. Darwin, at the time he sailed on HMS Beagle, was studying to be a cleric at Cambridge University. And he was as stunned by anyone by what he found out, what he discovered about the nature of life having evolved.
50 years.
There's such thing as too much free speech.
Now you're getting into that's maybe another question for Dr. Menton. You're talking to a bureaucrat here. But of course, there are limits to free speech. In high schools and such, students can only say so much in their student newspapers. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Of course, there can be too much free speech. But in this area of origins, because it's a controversial topic of creation versus evolution, it'd be great if young people could be exposed to both sides of this controversy. Both sides of this controversy.
I think that young people in school should be exposed to creationism as well, but not in science class, in a class on logical fallacy, in a class on the different forms of religion, because creationism is a classic example of a number of logical fallacies that are the counterfeit of argument and very destructive to education and to the progress of the human mind. It is a return to a medieval system of faith and dogma as opposed to inquiry and investigation. So yes, I think it should be taught as an example of how reasoning can go awry and lead one into grievous error, or faith rather, or something counterfeiting as reason. This is not reasoning, this is affirmation of belief. They have the belief and they're going to set out to prove it. And that's what this museum is all about.